Well, today is a momentous day. Our episode number is a perfect square, 8 squared. We're episode 64. Going to be talking about Psalms, going to be talking a little bit more about photography and that kind of stuff, but episode 64.
$64.
Yep.
Okay.
So what's weird about me, a lot of people...
It's going to take a while.
A lot of people, like, when they're thinking about their own age, they think of it in terms of, like, the decade milestones.
Yes.
I've always thought of it in terms of the squared milestones.
Mm-hmm.
Like 9 is 3 squared, 16 is 4 squared, 25 is 5 squared.
Yeah.
Like right now, I'm 45, so the next milestone is 7 squared, 49.
Mm-hmm.
And then it'll be a long time until my next one. But
Does,
yeah.
does
I don't know
your-
why I think like it that way.
Does your professional baker wife bake you cakes during those occasions, like perfect square or whatever?
No.
Okay.
For a couple reasons. One, she's too busy, but
Yeah.
two, I don't usually, because I live with cake and it's always there, I kind of got burnt out of it years ago. Every now and then there's, like she'll make a new flavor or something,
I see.
and it's delicious. I mean, they're all delicious, but like
Sure.
it's not one that's I've been, worn out of.
Right.
and I'll really enjoy that. The running joke is, I think like maybe 6 years, maybe it was for my 40th birthday. She told me she would make me a Doctor Who TARDIS cake, and so I still joke with her like, just waiting for that cake.
She'll get it as soon as she gets all of her orders out.
Yep. And she asked me what flavor. I'm like, anything other than chocolate and vanilla, just do something crazy, like something you've wanted to experiment with or something.
All
You
right.
know? Yeah. She
could
makes
do
a
it.
guava cake that's delicious and a coconut
Guava.
cake that's really good.
my
And,
gosh.
yeah.
Wow. Well, I've had one of her cakes. It was very, very good.
Yep.
It was very good. We ate the whole thing. Anyway, so today, both of us are on kind of a time schedule
Yes.
today. I've got to get out of here really soon. In one of the
I do as well.
topics, well, first of all, this is the second episode in our new studio.
Yep. Oh yeah. And people probably noticed that there's video now.
Video.
All of
now.
our new cameras came in. We have lighting in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
It's still echoey. I got the sound panels. They're coming. They should be delivered tomorrow. But if
Great.
for some reason we have a special guest appear on camera, I have a cat here that has to go to the vet
Yeah.
in about an hour and a half. So
Right. I think she's not going to appear.
yeah, she's kind of I don't know,
Yeah.
hiding at the moment.
She's apprehensive, social anxiety to the max, I think, with
Yeah,
with her.
which usually isn't the case. She's usually the outgoing of the two.
She's just not.
But yeah, and she's not familiar with the office area.
Right, especially when two, 3 people she doesn't know.
Right.
She's got to be stressed out a little bit right now. But anyway, so the reason I got to get out of here is I'm going to do a photo shoot mountain biking. There's a youth series based out of Alabama, from grade school to high school, and I'm going to be their photographer for today and tomorrow, which I'm excited about because I've mountain biked for over 20 years. Good gracious, 50. Now it's 30 plus years I've been on a mountain bike, and so I know the trails real well, and I know how to mountain bike. So I know how to get around to places without getting in the way, and love photography. So I'm looking forward to that combination.
If someone who didn't know us were to just take a glance at us, I think they would know pretty easily which one of us has been mountain biking for 30 years and
You think
which
so?
one of us has been sitting at a desk for 30 years.
Well, you say that, but one of our new pastors, Jeffrey, at Marcus Point, is a cyclist too. He looks like a weightlifter,
Yeah.
and I think he has been a weightlifter
Okay.
in the past. But he loves gravel biking, and he's about as wide as 5 bikes put together in his shoulders.
He's as wide as the bike is long.
Man, oh man, he's a muscular guy. I have challenged him to arm wrestle 3 or 4 times, but he acts like he doesn't hear me every time I do it. Yeah. And I don't know why that is.
I think he's afraid.
I think he's afraid.
That's the story I'd tell people.
He's tattooed from his fingers to his neck, and I think if I put my arm down like this, I don't even think they would meet. You know what I mean? I think his would somehow dwarf mine. I don't even know if we could arm
Maybe
wrestle.
if we have him as a guest sometime, we'll have to open up with an arm wrestle.
We'll see. We'd be in 2 totally different classes, I'll tell you that.
The fastest hook opening to it.
Yeah. That's right. Bam! Break the table. I don't want to embarrass him that bad, but anyway. But my part today, I'm just going to talk about a little bit about photography because that's all I've been doing lately. West Florida baseball, high school baseball, the Jags are allowing me to be their photographer this year, and so I go to all the home games. And the way that baseball season happens, like any baseball season, it's very condensed. They have 2 or 3 games a week. And it's most of them have been home so far. So I go all the home. I'm going to some of the away games also. But I've learned a lot with photography. It's actually it's one of the first times in my photography history that I'm acting like a pro photographer, meaning I've got very short turnaround. Or I go take. I'm shooting in burst mode, high burst mode. In sports, you do that, right? So I go.
You have to because the action happens so quickly.
Right. So I go home with 800 photos for a 2 or 3 hour event. I've got like 800 photos. Yeah, it's a lot of photos to go through.
Do you keep those all, or do you delete a lot of them?
At first, I keep them, but then I'll go back and I'll delete them.
Okay.
Just in case somebody comes to me and says, "Do you have this, and I didn't think it was important and didn't edit it and publish it. I'll go back and I'll keep it for a short period of time.
Okay.
Probably for the season. Yeah. But the thing is with photography, you got to store stuff. You got to be very organized in storing things. Yeah. If you don't, whatever hard drive you have is going to fill up very quickly. Yeah. And after a while, if you don't have an organized philosophy that where you can name things and know what it is by the name and date, you go back to it after a week and go, I don't even know what that is, and you have to look at everything. You don't want to have to do that.
You have to recreate the game in context.
Yes, it's crazy. So if you stay organized, you can do this efficiently. If you get 2 or 3 days behind, it's tough.
Right.
Easier if you already have a system. But anyway, so the games are at night. I come home and I say to myself, okay, I'm going to try to at least download the photos from its original card in the camera into a hard drive, so I have 2 copies. Most of the time that doesn't work because whenever I get home, Bobby wants to play, my cat wants to play, and I play with her, and it's 10 and 11 o'clock, and I'm used to go to bed at 9 o'clock, and I'm going, I just can't keep my head up. So I used to do it the next day, whatever. So this has been about 3 weeks now, so I'm turning into a more of a night person for me. Going to bed at 11 o'clock is so unusual. Yeah. So unusual for me. Usually it's 10. I have a reminder on my watch saying 10 o'clock, go to bed. I'm usually in bed sleeping, and that wakes me up. tells me go to bed. So anyway, so what I've learned is that I like it. It's a lot of work, Josh, but I like it. I like the capturing of the moments of these kids. I say kids, these high school kids, these juniors and seniors, and some of them are sophomores. I do some of the JV games also, but mostly the varsity. And the kids are getting used to seeing me. The parents getting used to seeing me and me them, and I'm seeing them develop and having good games and having some bad games, and it's just fun to capture these moments. My favorite moments are first base. Somebody comes to first base, and they're playing off first base, closer to second, and the pitcher throws it to first, and the guy dives to first base, and I've got several of these kids in midair, like this far off the ground, diving for first base. That's beautiful. You know what I mean? That's a lot of fun to get something like that. And this sports sports photography is new to me, so it's novel, and I'm enjoying that. But it's a lot of work.
So if you're going back to the mountain biking thing, I understand the process of being a photographer of a baseball game, because everything is pretty much bound, within the
right there.
Yeah, within the constraints of the stadium. Mountain biking, though, are you like on a bike, following them, taking pictures, or are you like? Okay, so.
Well, no, I'm not agreeing that yes, that's what I'm doing. I'm actively listening, is what that's called.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm not familiar with that. Yeah, so like, are you following them on a mountain bike and taking pictures, or are you like standing on the sidelines as they pass? How does that work?
Staying on the sidelines. So knowing the trail makes me uniquely qualified as a photographer to go to certain places that other photographers may not know, to be able to capture action moments. Okay. The mountain biking is, it is contained also, but you can't see it all unless you're looking, a mile up in the air and you see everything. So it's a lot of miles around, but I know every inch of that place. Okay. So I know where the action starts. So what I'll do is I'll go.
So you're uniquely qualified to be the mountain biking photographer.
Yes, in this place.
Okay.
I certainly am. And if I go to, they're also racing up in Birmingham about 7 times this year. If I go up there and ride the trails, I'll know where there's going to be some good photo shoots also. But not knowing the trails, I won't know until I do a pre-ride.
Okay.
This place I've ridden thousands of times. Probably not an exaggeration. So what I'll do is I'll get at the start line and get all the intense moments of the faces and whenever they get going. I may go to what's called the hole shot. So we start in a place that's, say, 80 feet wide.
Right.
A road wide, and everybody takes off, and they're racing to get to the single track that's only a single track wide. That's the hole shot. So that's where all the action takes place. You get into the hole shot, and then you're dictating the pace of the race for the most part.
Okay. So are you moving from spot to spot?
I'll move from spot to spot.
Okay. How does that work?
Yeah, I'll let you know. I'll let you know, because there's waves also. Yeah. There's waves. There's like 2 starts a day, and within those starts, one may start at 11. Another wave will start at 11:03. One will start at 11:00, whatever. Yeah. And then later on in the afternoon, there'll be another start, and the same thing, staggered start. So there's hundreds of mountain bikers on the course at one time. It gets confusing after everybody has started. The nameplate will be able to tell you what class they're in, but that's not going to matter to me what class they're in. Since I'm just one person. If Chris was going with me or somebody's going with me, we could strategically place ourselves, right? But I'm just going to do my best to get as many shots as I can, and then in post I'll crop them to get as many number plates, as many faces. I'm not going to do the best job that I know I could do, because this is the first time. There's hundreds of racers, there's only one photographer, me.
It reminds me, there's this video that went viral somewhat of, I don't know if it was Olympics or what, but it was a foot race, and it showed all the athletes, running down the track at full tilt, and then off to the side there's a cameraman who was just plain clothes, had a big camera on his shoulder, and was actually overtaking them as he had the camera pointed on them.
I remember seeing that.
And I remember the camera, like the view switching to the camera view and looking at the runner, and the runners were like looking at the camera like, dude's beating us. And that's kind of what I envision with you. Like, are you on the mountain bike racing everybody else? Beating them so you can take pictures?
I could very well put a GoPro on my helmet and find a place where I could probably run parallel to them. If you've seen the Tour de France, the last day of the Tour de France is on the Champs-Élysées, and circuits around the Champs. And and they've put a camera on a runner, not a runner, but some kind of stand, and the stand runs with the cyclist. So so at the last lap, they're coming around, and this camera goes right with the cycle, and it is such a unique view in cycling because there's very few places where you can do that.
Yeah.
When the sprinters are sprinting, they're usually they're just going too fast for one, and it's on a road, so there's not enough room for a camera person to be on the side. This is a unique view, and this is whenever you see what sprinters are like, who they are, and how fast they are, and how strong they are. Whenever you're parallel to them and watching them, it's revolutionary.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
It reminds me of like the Greyhound races. They're chasing that bunny on the track, going around the track, and they'll put a camera on that.
Exactly
and
right.
Watch the Greyhounds.
That's exactly.
I
what
wonder
it
if
is.
they stole that idea from the
Maybe
Greyhound
so,
racing.
but it's effective. I remember seeing the video you're talking about. This was, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but I don't think he was wireless either. I think he was tied to a wire somewhere.
Oh, I don't know. What I mean? That would be hilarious if it all of a sudden reached the end.
Well, I'm not sure if he was wireless or not, but it was one of those big old cameras that you had to put on your shoulder. It wasn't a small one. He was running with it like this, turning sideways. What is this guy doing? Obviously a runner.
Someone recruited him afterwards.
No kidding.
He runs that fast with a huge camera. How fast does he run without it?
It was really cool. Yeah, it was neat. But anyway, that's all I wanted to mention. That's all I've been doing. So I'm deep diving into that and seeing. My hope is to be not just West Florida's, but the school systems photographer next year.
So I have a question. You said you'd driven or rode that particular course thousands of times. I guess two questions. When you first started riding it, would you have ever considered yourself being a bystander on that, taking pictures of other people? And then second question is, when did you first start riding the course and paying attention more to strategic spots to stop and take pictures?
Oh, gosh.
Would it have been before they asked you to do this? Like, were you just kind of in your own mind thinking about these things?
Yes. Well, first of all, when I started riding it, there was 25, almost 25 years ago when I first moved here. I found out about it, so I started riding that course.
So way before you were into photography?
Yes.
Okay.
So no, I wouldn't have thought of strategic places to take pictures. After getting into photography 3, 4, 5 years ago, then I started thinking that'd be a cool place. But I was still just concentrating really on riding.
Yeah.
There's enough decisions to be made, riding and staying safe, than worry about where I could take pictures. But just in my mind's eye, I know where I can do it.
See, I find it interesting that like the more you get into something, like whether it's your career or whether it's something you're just normally interested in like a hobby or whatever, I find this in engineering a lot. And even when I have like young engineers that I work with and are training them up, they often start to experience the same thing. Is it changes the way you look at the world around you, because like driving down the road, you're not just mindlessly driving. Like I'm looking, like even when I'm in buildings, like one of the funnier things, I was at my cousin's wedding down in Tampa. This was years and years ago, and it was a really unique building that had a lot of like really interesting steel structural elements to it, and so. Everybody's like taking pictures and having fun and everything, and I'm off to the side like taking pictures of how this steel column bolts into the concrete, all this stuff. And I do this in airports too.
Yeah.
Whenever I travel, and like looking at how asphalt warps in the heat in areas where cars decelerate and accelerate, and it kind of crinkles like a blanket, or how roof geometry ties into itself, and different shaped buildings. I mean, all this kind of stuff. It's like the world looks different to you when your brain is immersed in stuff.
One of the first things that you learn as a photographer, well, let me restate that. One of the first things I teach people as a photographer teacher is to start paying attention to light. The way that the intensity of light, the color of light, how shadows are cast, how to not cast a shadow. And once you do that, that's the first thing that I remember paying attention to as a photographer that I didn't pay attention to before photography.
Yeah.
A good example, I guess an easy example for people to understand is that whenever so there's golden hour and blue hour. Golden hour is at the end of the day when the sun's going down. Blue hour is in the morning when the sun's coming up. And both are very good for photography.
And GoldenEye is a James Bond movie.
That's right, something like that. GoldenEye. Golden Child,
Yep.
Eddie Murphy,
Yep.
I think. Yeah. Kind of the same thing. But anyway.
Good movies.
Yeah, good movies. So last week you gave us a knowledge bomb that I really appreciated.
Yeah, and I have to issue a little bit of a retraction there
Right.
because okay, so a little bit of backstory. I don't know if you ever listened to Taylor Swift.
I do not. And I'm a music fan.
My wife listens to her prolifically, and one of the things I notice in Taylor Swift's music is she has this one line that's used over and over again.
Oh,
it's
all right.
always like dancing in the rain, kissing in the rain, crying in the rain.
Something in the rain.
Yes, he's obsessed with rain. Psalms is kind of like that too. Last week we were talking about Psalm 42, and there's a line in there, my God, why hast thou forgotten me?
Yeah.
And talked about how Jesus, when he was on the cross, quoted the lyric to this song. It wasn't Psalm 42, it was Psalm 22.
And you said 42 last
Yeah,
week. Okay.
because Psalm 22, and we'll actually go through this today, but Psalm 22 opens up with that lyric, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? And there's some other cool prophetic things in there too, but I had to issue that slight retraction there, as I said 42 and it's 22.
You had a hard time sleeping all week, didn't you?
I
You just
have,
couldn't do it.
and like, how do I introduce this?
Yeah,
I know
right.
what I'll do. Taylor Swift, everybody loves Taylor Swift.
Yeah. By the way, our listeners, if in our YouTube channel, if you will, in the comments section, just write down if you knew that Jesus was quoting a psalm. If you did know, just put yes. If you didn't know, put no. I didn't know. Did you know, Chris?
Well, that's
That's the first thing that I asked Chris if he didn't know. That's amazing. Sorry, Chris. No.
So Jesus was quoting a song lyric. It was just from an earlier album of David's. Yeah.
That's the original.
Right.
I got you. Okay. Now that's really cool.
Yeah.
It really is.
But so this kind of ties into what we were talking about in the photography stuff, and like engineering is like when you're really into something, it starts to change your outlook and how you view the world around you.
Glasses you put on, like when we become saved, we look at the world in a different way.
Yeah, and I think we can sort of derive from this that Jesus really liked music too, because when like us, when you're driving down that trail or you're walking around looking at the world around you, you're looking at it from the perspective of how could I take pictures of this?
Yeah.
Right, because that's what you're into. When I'm walking around the world, I'm like, how could I design this, or what are the design elements that make this building stay up?
Right.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Jesus, when he was on the cross, his first, what he quoted from when he was at his lowest point was this song lyric from one of David's early albums. Is the opening lyric to this song, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think it's cool thinking about it that way, because music does something that just mere words often aren't able to do.
Sort of evoke emotion for one.
Yeah,
very
evoke
strongly.
emotion and express emotion, because it's not enough just to say I'm sad, but it's another thing entirely to say like I'm standing in the rain crying,
Right. Yes.
because that not only displays the type of emotion that you're expressing, but it also gives it in the context of like, it's raining on me, and I don't even care because this is such a devastating thing that I'm standing in the rain. I'm crying my eyes out. You know?
Right. Yep.
And I think that's probably why artists like Taylor Swift like to use that type of terminology, because it goes beyond just the mere declaration that I am sad and I am crying. You know, and here in not to in any way draw a parallel between the quality of lyrics of Taylor Swift and the quality of lyrics of King David in the Psalms, but
Right.
the concept is similar, because that's a theme that we see often in David's writings.
Okay.
Because he struggles with a lot of bad things in his life, and a lot of the Psalms take on the template of, like, the first half is, God, why have you forsaken me, or why have you forgotten me, or why have you left me, whatever. And he starts like wrestling with that idea, and then he starts talking about the nature of God, and he ends up concluding, and Psalm 22 is the same way, Psalm 42 is the same way that we talked about last week. He ends up concluding is like, well, wait a second, the problem isn't God. God is always who he says he is, and he's constant, and he's always there, and all this stuff. And it ends up like being a praise. Like,
Okay.
now that I have my perspective on you, everything else sort of falls into the place it needs to be. And by the way, God, you're actually pretty awesome. And Psalm 22 is like that. But I want to point out a couple things in Psalm 22. So it starts out, well, it starts out, and it's written to the chief musician, a psalm of David. It says, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Why art thou so far from helping me? And the words of my roaring. My God, I cry in the daytime, but thou hearest not, in the night season, and am not silent. But thou art holy, O thou that inhabitest the praises of Israel. Our fathers trusted in thee. They trusted, and you delivered them. They cried to thee, and were delivered. They trusted in thee, and were not confounded. But I am a worm, and no man, a reproach of men, and despised of the people. All they that see me laugh me to scorn. They shoot out the lip. They shake the head, saying, they shake their head, saying, he trusted in the Lord that he would deliver him. Let him deliver him, saying he delighted in him. But thou art he that took me out of the womb. Thou didst make me hope when I was upon my mother's breast. And so it's David's going through something horrible right now. He's like, God, when Israel cried, you've said you inhabit the praises of Israel. When Israel cried out to you, you delivered them. When I cried out to you, nothing. Not only that, but other people, seeing me struggle with this stuff, looked at me and shook their heads like, God should probably deliver him too sometime, and so he's struggling with this, like, God, why have you forsaken me?
But we don't know what his struggle is.
Well, we don't know what that struggle is yet. And so he like really digs deep into that emotion. He says, my strength is dried up, my tongue cleaveth to my jaws. You've brought me into the dust of death. Dogs have compassed me. The assembly of the wicked have enclosed me. They pierced my hands and my feet. I may tell all my bones. They look and stare upon me. They part my garments among them and cast lots upon my vesture. But be not thou far from me, O God, O Lord, O my strength. Haste thee to help me. Deliver my soul from the sword. So, in him describing all of these different like metaphors of his toil, he says some things that are really interesting. They pierced my hands and my feet. They parted my garments among them, cast lots upon my vesture. These are the exact same things that happened to Christ when he was crucified. The people that put him on the cross, they nailed his hands and his feet to the cross. They pierced his hands and his feet. They took, the clothes that Jesus was wearing was valuable. It was, according to the New Testament, it describes it as one continuously woven cloth that had no seams to it. That was something that was valuable at that time.
No kidding.
And so the Roman soldiers actually took his garments and cast lots for them to see who got to keep Jesus' clothes.
I never knew why they were casting lots for his clothes. I just thought they were doing it as a game.
No
reason.
They were like, calling dibs on it.
Right.
Like everybody wanted. It's like, all right, well, let's cast lots. Let's roll the dice. Let's see who gets to keep these. Kind of like, all right, let's rock paper scissors for it.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting about that too is, in the identity of Jesus, who he was. He's called our high priest. Hebrews deals with this extensively. That was that was one of the characteristics of the priest's garment, is that it was a continuously woven cloth that had no seams to it. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of, and that's what's so interesting about how the New Testament, or really all of Scripture, puts these little bitty details in here and there, that if we're paying attention, they should call our memories back to something really important.
Yes, right.
Because this wasn't just a normal article of clothing that everybody would, go down to Walmart and buy and wear. This was something that someone made specifically for Jesus in a specific way, and the way it was made was a callback to an Old Testament reference that gives us a little bit more insight into Jesus' identity and his purpose here on earth. And so looking at this Psalm 22 and the different elements that are embedded in it, that David is using as metaphors for his suffering, they actually become prophetic because Jesus actually went through that. And so when he was on the cross, after his garments had been taken, bet on and distributed to whoever won, after his hands and feet had been pierced, after he felt the presence of God leaving him because the sin of the world had been put upon him, this is the song that came to his mind. Mm-hmm. My God, why have you forsaken me? Is the opening lyric to this song. So I don't know. I thought that would be in issuing that retraction. I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into Psalm 22. It's a really cool psalm. I recommend you read it if you haven't. But the way it ends, it says, let's see. My praise shall be of thee in the great congregation. I will pay my vows before them that fear him. The meek shall eat and be satisfied, and they shall praise the Lord that seek him. Your heart shall live forever. So his attitude, once his attitude changes from being centered on himself to being centered on God, just like a lot of the Psalms of David, his attitude changes, and he starts, he ends that song as a bunch of praise about who God is and how his perspective was changed as a result. Really neat.
Josh, how do you think that the Romans knew that garment was special? I mean, they have to had inspected it, didn't they? Or was there something that they could see from a distance that gave them an indication that it was a special garment?
Well, when Christ was being beaten and whipped and all that stuff, they had to remove part of his clothing anyway. So I assume that when they did that and they stripped him before he was about to be crucified, that's when it became apparent. Like, hey, this is actually a pretty cool piece of clothing.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Josh, thanks.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Chris, thank you. Appreciate you. Thanks for sponsoring breakfast, you and J. Dale this morning. I'd like to say thank you to our main sponsor, Chris and J. Dale.
Yep.
For sponsoring the breakfast, and Josh for sponsoring the coffee, and for me for being a mooch and just showing up. I appreciate that. All right, guys. We'll see y'all next week. Thanks.
Bye.